Good afternoon. Today I am going to discuss about doctrine of election and doctrine of dependence. I am S. Kiruti Rakshya, studying third year. Section 35 of Transfer of Property Act deals about doctrine of election. So what is election? Election means a choice between two alternative and conflicting rights, granting two rights in such a way that one is higher than the other and one has to choose either of them and one cannot have both. The person taking the benefit should also bear the burden. This principle was adopted in the case C. Bituma versus Viduri Shankar Narayana Kadambodhya, Supreme Court case of 1965. So, in property law, this doctrine is used to resolve all the property conflicts among the people, and that they have to elect for or against the instrument. That is, the recipient has to choose between two choices. One is owning the property and preserving the property, and the second choice is to accept one's own intention of accepting the benefits. So, this is regarding the doctrine of election introduction. So, now what is the meaning of doctrine of election? Section 35, it states that whenever a party transfers a property over which he does not hold any right of transfer and entailed in that transaction is benefit conferred upon the original owner of the property, such title holder must elect his option to either validate such transfer of a property or reject it. So there are two options and he has to elect any one of them, and upon rejection the benefit shall be relinquished back to the transferor subject nevertheless. So there is two conditions where the benefit will go back to the transferor, that is where the transfer has been through a gratuitous mean and the transferor has become incapable of making a new transfer, and in any case where the transfer is for any consideration. So there are certain exceptions here. When the owner who is considering the election chooses to retain the property rather than accepting a particular benefit, then he is not bound to relinquish any extraneous benefit that he gains through the transaction. He has to accept all the extraneous benefit that is going to reach him. And the acceptance of the benefit by the original owner shall be deemed to be an election by him to validate the transfer, if he is aware of his responsibilities and the circumstances that might influence a prudent man into making an election. So this knowledge of the circumstances is to be assumed as though the person has gained the benefit and enjoys it for a period of more than 2 years. If the original owner does not elect his option within 1 year of transfer, then the transferor would require him to elect his choice. And even after a reasonable time, if he still has not elected yet, then the original owner will assume to have elected the validation of the property transfer as his choice. And in case of a minor, the period of election shall be stalled till the individual attains majority or he is represented by a guardian. So when is an election necessary? When the concede to transfer property on which he has no rights, and in the same transaction they must elect either to accept it or not. In case he doesn't, he must release the benefit till then, and the benefits he had till then goes back to the transferor as if it's not at all given in the first place. And although when the benefit is transferred back, he has to make some good to the transferee, at least it can be done in the following two ways. One is where the transfer is voluntary and transferor had died or had become incapable of doing a fresh transfer, and transfer is for a consideration. So who does not have to elect? The person who indirectly derives benefit from the transactions and not directly according to section 35, he does not need to elect. For example, if A promises to give B rupees 1000 and if his son C buys the house for rupees 1200. So nowhere N's son doesn't have to elect, as it is B who will have to make the decision on what to do, because B was the one who has to receive the money. So when does a person elect to dissent? According to section 35, if the owner does not approve the transfer, he will surrender the transferred service to him, and this service will be returned back to the transferor or his representative as if he had not at all been released. So the following could take place, that is two scenarios will take place. One is the transfer becomes involuntary and the transferor had died or had become incapable, and in all cases where the transfer has to be checked, it is the responsibility of the transferor or his representative compensate beyond disappointed buyers. The compensation amount is the amount of value of property that will be transferred if the option. So what is the principle underlying under this doctrine of election? Elegans contraria non e audiendis. That is, he is not to be heard who alleges things contradictory to each other. So this is the principle that is applied in the doctrine of election. In a case of Cooper versus Cooper, Lord Hayter explained the principle underlying the doctrine of election in the following words. That is, there is an obligation on him who takes benefit under a will or other instrument to give full effect to the instrument under which he takes benefit, and if it is found that the instrument purports to deal with something which it is beyond the power of the donor to dispose of, but to which can be given by the concurrence of him who receives the benefit under the same instrument, the law will impose on him who takes the benefit the obligation of carrying the instrument into a full and complete force and effect. So this is the principle underlying the doctrine of election. So applicability of doctrine in personal laws. Under Hindu law, the doctrine was directly applied in the case of Mangaldas versus Ruchandas, and under Mohammedan law, the doctrine was applied by the Privy Council in the case Sadiq Hussain versus Hasim Ali. So what is the application of doctrine of election in English law? In this respect, the English law is different because there is a donee electing against the instrument and does not incur a forfeiture of the benefit conferred on him by it, but is merely bound to make compensation out of it to the person disappointed by his election. So the rule in section 35 applies whether the transferor does or does not believe that which he professes to transfer to be his own, and a person taking no benefit directly under a transaction but deriving a benefit under it indirectly, he need not elect. And a person who in his own capacity takes a benefit under the transaction may in another descend therefrom. So this is the application of doctrine of election in English law. So there are certain essential conditions for the application of doctrine of election. In the case of Dhanpati versus Devi Prasad and others, before there is an election, there must be transfer of property by a person who has no right to transfer. As a part of same transaction, he must confer some benefit on the owner of the property, and such owner must elect either to confirm the transfer or to dissent from it. So exception of a general rule is if a person elects against the instrument, he will forfeit the whole of the benefit he received under it. And the exception of this is if a person elects against the instrument, he will not forfeit the whole benefit but only benefit attached in the lieu of the property, that is election limited to the part of a benefit. What are the modes of election? Modes of election can be two types, direct and indirect. Direct, where they are simple through communication about the elected choice or option, where in case of an indirect election, the acceptance of the benefit by original owner is subject to two conditions. One, he has to be aware of his duty to elect, and there must be a proof of knowledge of circumstances which will influence the judgment of a reasonable man in the making of the election. And there has to be an enjoyment of 2 years of benefit by the person on whom it is conferred. The election shall be presumed when the donee acts in such a manner with the property gifted to him and it becomes impossible to return it to the original owner in its state. So time limit for election is when the owner of the property within 1 year after the date of transfer signifies to either transferor or his representative, even if they know that the expiration period and even after knowing from the representatives does not make any decision. So, and they are deemed to have elected to confirm the election if they don't reply after the period is over. So case law for this is Mohammed Qadar Ali Fakir versus Luqman Hakim. The basis of doctrine of choice is that a person who uses the instrument must also bear the burden, as discussed in the earlier case. This is a violation of general rules that cannot be accepted or rejected by anyone. This doctrine is based on the fictional intent of this ether that the law implies that the author of the instrument intends to manifest any part of it. There is an obligation for anyone using a will or any other instrument to make that instrument fully effective, which donors and settlers cannot have. However, what effect can be obtained from his agreement that has received compensation based on the instrument? The law will apply to the applicant's obligation to use the instrument in full force and effect, and if the tool is partially invalid, the rest is enough to place someone to vote if they say so. So this is what the court held in Mohammed Qadar Ali Fakir versus Luqman Hakim. Doctrine of lis pendens. Section 52 of Transfer of Property Act tells about doctrine of lis pendens. It is a Latin term which means transfer during a pending litigation. This doctrine puts restriction on the transfer of property during the pendency of a suit in a court competent to try it. So the suit must be pending before the court and the court has to be competent of its jurisdiction. Now what does section 52 tell about? That is, during the pendency or in any court having the authority within the limits of excluding the state of Jammu and Kashmir, that is the jurisdiction, are established beyond such limits by the central government of any suit or proceeding, and this suit should not be collusive in nature and in which any right to removable property is directly and specifically in question. That is, the right to the property has to be directly or specifically in question of issue. The property cannot be transferred or otherwise dealt with by any party to the suit or proceeding as to affect the right of any other party. So the basic concept here is both the parties cannot transfer the property in case of a pending suit. So this is and this protects the rights of both the parties in the proceeding. So what is the object of this doctrine is to avoid endless litigation, to protect one party's of the litigation against the act of the order, and to avoid legal abuse. Essential requirements, as we saw in the section 52, there has to be a suit or proceeding present, and such suit or proceeding should be pending before a competent court having jurisdiction, that is before excluding the state of Jammu and Kashmir in the earlier case, but now as Jammu and Kashmir section 370 is repealed, the jurisdiction also includes Jammu and Kashmir, and this suit or proceeding is not collusive. And the suit or proceeding must be which a question of immovable property is directly or substantially in issue. The suit or proceeding must be pending. It should not be in the starting stage or at the ending one. Then neither party to the suit or proceeding shall transfer or otherwise deal with the immovable property which is the subject matter of such a suit, so as to defeat the right of the party, that is provided the exception with leave or permission of the court. Even during the pendency of a suit, property can be transferred, and this leave or permission granted by the court can be given or not given. That is, a court has a discretionary power to either grant permission or not. So the exception for this lis pendens is that bona fide purchaser. Bona fide purchaser for value without notice is an exception. Bona fide purchaser is a purchaser who purchased the goods in the good faith, and after a due inquiry from the seller who has taken proper precaution. If he is not a bid of a bona fide purchaser for value without notice, then the transferee shall not be entitled to any protection where he purchased the property at his own risk and peril. So there are two conditions. One is reasonable care and good faith. So when the transferee has reasonable care of the property that is going to buy and he has good faith over the transferor, then in such a situation the bona fide purchaser will get the protection. Doctrine of notice and lis pendens. After the amendment to section 52, it provides for notice of lis pendens. That it is a mandatory procedure and should be registered under section 18 of Indian Registration Act. The notice shall follow the particulars. That is, first, that such notice is a very mandatory one, and this notice should be registered under section 18 of the Registration Act. And the particulars of the notice has to include the name and address of the owner of immovable property and whose right to the immovable property is in question, the description of the immovable property, nature of right in respect of the immovable property, the court in which the suit of the proceeding depends, name and title of suit of proceedings, and the date on which the suit of proceeding was instituted. So all these 7 conditions has to be there present in the notice in order for a lis pendens to move on. The Jairam Mudalia versus Ayyasamy and others have held, the Supreme Court held in this case that purpose of section 52 of Transfer of Property Act is not to defeat any just and equitable claim, but only to subject them to the authority of the court which is dealing with the property to which claims are put forward. So this basically protects the people from any fraudulent transfer. Thank you.